Step into the world of estate planning, probate, and wills and trusts with the Del Toro Law Podcast. Leading the way is your host, Attorney Peter Del Toro.
Coming up, do you need a will or a trust? Uncover essential estate planning advice from a top estate attorney. Welcome back, everyone. This is Garfield Bowen, co-host / producer, back in the studio with Attorney Peter Del Toro. Peter, how you doing today?
I'm great, Garfield. How are you?
I am fine. I'm fine. So, Peter,
Yes, sir.
should I get a will or a trust?
I'm going to have to give you I hate to give you the typical lawyer answer of it depends, right? You know, we always want a definitive answer, but it really does depend on each person's circumstances. A will and a trust will both get your assets where you want them to go, in the manner you want them to go. However, a will could be subject to probate, which is sometimes a very significant cost and time, where a trust can avoid probate altogether. However, it really depends on each person's individual circumstances. Sometimes we can use a will, and Florida has some special deed that we can use, and we can avoid probate altogether and still use a will as significant savings compared to a trust, because a trust is a more expensive option when we're doing estate planning. But if you have significant assets, diversified assets, most of the time you're looking at a trust, and a trust acts just like a will, and that'll get all your assets where you want them to go, how you want them to go, and it'll avoid the court system, avoid probate, which is going through the court system to have your assets distributed. So it's a lot quicker. If it's done right and planned right, a lot quicker, and a lot less costly in the long run.
Okay, but so you're saying if we're looking at things in totality, in total, ordinary speaking, which is more expensive, a will or a trust?
A trust is a more expensive document, but it's a much more flexible document, and it allows a lot more control over how your assets are distributed. A trust could terminate shortly after your death, or a trust can continue on for many years. It really depends on every person's circumstances. But when you get some significant assets, a trust is going to be a much better vehicle to get your things where they have to go outside of the court system. And in our trust packages, we do a trust, we do a will that gives everything back to our trust in case we didn't put it in the trust. We do a power of attorney, a living will. We do a whole package that covers you when you pass, and God forbid, in the worst case scenario, when you're alive and you're incapacitated. So that whole package is still cheaper than probate is currently right now. So let's say I'm 51 years old and I do my trust package. The cheapest probate you're going to find is $5,000 or $6,000. I mean, we can do a trust package for less than that. But and I live another 20 years. What's probate going to cost 20 years from now? It's going to be significantly more expensive. So you're kind of locking in today on a trust that you have for the rest of your life, very flexible document. You can move assets in, out, whatever we need. So it's a much better way to go about it, is that if you have any significant assets, to have a trust and be able to get your assets to your heirs or your loved ones or your designees without having to go through the time and expense of probate. Because probate could be anywhere from 6 months to 18 months, depending on how complex it is, and if someone objects. There's a lot of issues that could happen during probate.
Okay, let me see if I got it right. If we talk about the cost of the will and the cost of the probate, the trust is cheaper.
The trust is cheaper in the long run. It's a little more upfront. It's kind of like those Fram oil commercials, pay a little now or a lot later. But it's an investment, but it's going to be set up for the way that you want it. Because we have so many different scenarios. We have some parents that might want to leave. They have multiple children and maybe one special needs. So we'll put a special needs trust inside that trust. That will go on for years and years, where that child can be taken care of. Where it's a little more costly and to do that in a will, and it gets more sticky every time you get the court involved. It's always a harder road to go down.
Okay, now I got one hard one now, so you may want to think a little bit on this one. Okay, does having a will in place make setting up a trust easier and cost less?
It would be no. If you had a will in place and you passed away, your assets would be distributed according to the terms of the will, And that would be overseen through the court process. So some people come in, they'll have a will that's inexpensive, but they have all these assets and they're subject to probate. So if we made them a trust, we would basically cancel out their old will, and I'd give them a new will. So that when we do a trust, we make a will that says everything that I have that's not in my trust, I give it to my trust. They call that, you'll hear the term called pour over will. If you consider your assets like your trust assets like a bucket, and we left something outside the bucket, that will would pour it back into the bucket. So when we do a trust package, we want to make sure all of your beneficiaries, all your designations are set up. That way that will just becomes a useless piece of paper. It becomes a fail-safe. God forbid something happens and I forgot to tell you I had a piece of property in Ohio. Well, now we have to go probate that property, and we want to put that property into the trust. But typically you'll have a will with your trust, but the will gives everything back to the trust. And we never want to use that will. We want to set up that trust right. And I sat down with my clients and say, hey, we made this trust together. This is what I can do to put assets in the trust. And this is your homework. This is what you have to do to put assets in the trust. You need to contact your financial planner, make sure your beneficiaries are right. Go to your bank, make sure these are the beneficiaries over here. And I walk them through that whole process. And as long as everybody does what they're supposed to do, God forbid something happens to that person, they pass away, those assets are easily transferable to the next parties.
What if the person is still alive and they have a will, but they decide now a trust is better? Would it be starting all over, or would you be able to transfer a lot of the information from the will to the trust in terms of setting that up?
I like to have people come in and we sit down and I tell them, bring anything that you have. If they say I have a will, I'm considering a trust, they come in, they bring that will in. I'll make a copy of it. We'll go over the terms of the will, what's different about the trust, any changes they might want to have. And then when I make the new documents, we have language in the new documents that cancels out any old document. So you're going to get the newest, latest, greatest, updated Florida law. Your will might be 20 years old. Some things might have changed. Now we make sure we address all those issues.
All right. So those who trying to figure out whether it's a will or a trust, you got to talk to my man here, Peter Del Toro, the estate attorney. Love it.
Yes,
you
sir.
Have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Garfield. You have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the Del Toro Law Podcast, your source for estate planning, probate, and wills and trusts. For a complimentary consultation, visit deltoro.law or give us a call at 772-444-0101. That's 772-444-0101.